Hey, everybody. Welcome, as you know, to episode 100. We're going to be interviewing Jeff Thomas from Westside Design Works over there in Colorado. Interesting in our pre-interview. We had a really good conversation in our pre-interview, so I'm sure today will follow suit. He's a very, very skilled guy. He came to this from, I believe, being a furniture designer or a furniture maker. And we're going to find out more on the inside. He has a partner in his business. So those of you who have partners will certainly be interested in hearing this. And he's got 5 total staff, so 3 plus him and his partner. So that gives you a sense of the scope of the size of his business, and you can kind of compare to where you are in your evolution, or look at where you're going, or look at where you've been with an intelligent eye. So let's see what Jeff's got to say here. I think you're really going to enjoy it. He's a good guy. Talk to you on the other side.
Jeff, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you today, Dominic?
I am good. Thank you so much for joining us here. You know, you're actually the first episode on inside of episode 100.
Nice.
Yeah, I want to interview
you. Glad to be part of it.
Thank you, and I'm glad you took action. You know, I put those ads out there saying, "Hey, I'd like to do some live coaching with people," and for a while, crickets.
Huh.
I'll tell you, nothing hits you in the soul like crickets when you put something out there like that. And then we got a bunch of applications, and yours was actually one of the first ones in. So thank you for that.
Yeah, of course.
So Jeff, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you, and why would you be talking to a bunch of cabinet makers around the world?
So I am one of 2 owners of Westside Design Works in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And we do commercial cabinetry and architectural millwork. Our revenue is about split between the 2, so not all casework. And we found a little niche doing some of the weird projects that a lot of cabinet shops don't quite want to take on.
What niche is that?
We got in with an architect here in town kind of early on, and that's how we got started in commercial. Just, being the ones that are willing to take a look at a set of drawings and figure out a way to build it, even when it doesn't necessarily fit into everyone's production system right away.
Right. So you're creative.
Yeah.
Very creative.
I have a degree in furniture design.
Oh, so you brought a furniture design degree into cabinetry.
Yeah. I went to school for design and quickly realized I didn't want to be in the office full time. So I started my own company about 5 years ago. Okay. And met my current business partner, Jacob, in the process of that first year. And about a year in, we formed our new company together.
Nice. Give us a sense of how big your company is, just like how many people and revenue.
So it's me and my business partner and 3 full-time employees. So
do you do your own installs?
Yep, we do all of our own installs. I would love to outsource it, but I don't know how to do that. Anyone that does commercial work knows that schedule is the name of the game.
Right.
That schedule constantly shifts. And I think one of the things we do best is we shift with their schedule.
Right.
So things get delayed and we figure out a way to still get it done on time.
Interesting. Well, we might have a chance to loop back to that. Let's get to the coaching part of this, Jeff. What do you think the biggest bottleneck is in the business?
I mean, the hardest thing is just being able to effectively communicate to the rest of the team what needs to happen on a project. Because we don't do the same thing over and over. If we're on a casework job, then it's easy. But yeah. we just finished up a job a couple months ago where we hung 14,000 square feet of wall paneling, up to 24 feet from the floor.
Oh, wow. Law firm or something like that?
Pardon?
Was it a law firm or a courtroom? Or?
It was an engineering firm.
Okay. Interesting. And so communications with the team is the bottleneck. What's the impact of that bottleneck on your company?
The guys definitely at times feel like, we've got good guys. They want to work. But there's definitely times where it's difficult for us to get enough information to them. And we don't have anyone that's really experienced either. So there's times where we feel stuck in the office or stuck in the shop, trying to make sure everyone else has something to do. And we definitely I would say, are neglecting some of the responsibilities that owners should be taking care of, like keeping track of our numbers on everything.
Right. Okay.
So we are stuck in production and in management roles sometimes.
You know what, Jeff? I can imagine a bunch of people listening to this right now yelling inside their truck. Oh, that's me. It's quite common.
Oh yeah, and I think it's really common, especially at our size. With 5 guys, we're not at the point where we have a full-time project manager. We don't have a shop foreman. I fill both of those roles. My business partner, Jacob, also fills those roles at times.
Right.
So, as owners, we are still in, very, very, varied roles. I made a map of all the roles in the company.
Oh, wow. Good.
A few months ago.
Yeah.
And, sat down, and I think at that time that it was before we had hired our last guy. So there was 4 of us, and I was showing the guys, there's about 30 different positions in this company that all 4 of us have to do.
What made you, by the way, doing that role chart or role, I don't know how you laid it out. That's brilliant. What was the straw that broke the camel's back that made you do that?
That it was mostly for effective communication with the guys. And then I think the big thing for me is I'm very focused on the culture here. I don't want to be training people over and over. And I have had a very hard time finding people that want to be here. So I want to make sure that my team knows they can advance here.
Right.
So what I wanted to do was make that map of those positions so that they could have a more tangible goal to work towards.
Have you, so great that you did that. And you said it broke down to about 30 different roles. Did you look at that in terms of positions? Because sometimes we have different roles. If I'm on the floor, I might have a role as a leader. I might have a role in safety, but I also have a role in production. So just randomly, there's 3 right there. Did you break those down into what a position would be?
Yeah, I broke them down. It's mostly broken down by what the title of that job would be.
Oh, great.
And made it very clear that, I have a guy who is kind of my lead installer. I'm still managing the install. And in many ways, I'm still the lead installer. But also trying to show them that hey, if you're in the shop, you have a different job title today than when you're on a job site. And with the way our company works and to work to the skill sets of who we have, sometimes a guy that has a little more authority in the shop is going to end up having a little less authority on a job site.
Have you ever, this might be an outside question, but I'm going to ask it to you on purpose in order to challenge you. You're very technically skilled. You went to school to be a furniture designer. You've got great vision. For people who can't see the video, there's even a sketch schematic behind you on the wall. I don't know if that's art or...
I don't even remember what that one's from.
I think it's a guillotine. I should be careful who you're drawing it for.
Yeah, I honestly don't remember what that one's from at the moment.
That's okay. But it serves the point. You're technically brilliant. You know what you're doing. Do you think that having such high technical skills helps or hurts in being a business builder?
It definitely helps to be able to understand the work that you're expecting other people to do. But there's definitely times that it hurts.
In what way?
I can't hand stuff off.
Right.
I can. I'm not willing to is a better way to phrase that.
Yeah.
I look at it and I go, I can do this so quick. Just get out of the way. So I think someone who is less technically skilled than I would be forced to have a little bit longer vision for a company at times. And they're also forced to find the people who can do the job.
Right.
Instead of just stepping in and doing it.
Right. So can I give a couple of recommendations here?
Of course.
So one of them is a book, and you might be able to listen to it as an audio as well. If you have a pen there, can you please write this book down? And if you've listened to the show before, you've heard me talk about this book. It's written by Michael Gerber. It's called The E-Myth Revisited.
I've read it.
Have you? Okay.
Yeah.
And he's got some other versions like the E-Myth Contractor and, the E-Myth Doctor or Physician. He's got a bunch of them. So you've read it. Do you remember the part where he talks about the different ways that we see the world as a business owner, the technician, the manager, and the entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know how long ago you read the book, and this wasn't supposed to be a test, Jeff, so it's okay if you don't remember that. But that technician mindset, where I'm really good and I'm really highly skilled at my job, is good to start the business, but it holds all of us back in growing. So as an example, just knowing the words technician, manager, and entrepreneur, being on a coaching meeting with me, which one of those roles do you think you're being on behalf of the business? Are you being the technician in the company, the manager of the company, or the entrepreneur?
I'm doing all three for sure. I'm definitely a better technician naturally than either of those. But I will say this year is where I've been able to even change my mindset a little more towards manager.
Sure, good.
And then one of the reasons I have a business partner is that he is more of the entrepreneur than I am.
Sure.
So the way our roles work is I tend to handle day to day.
Okay.
And he's working on forming new relationships and looking for work.
Marketing and sales, estimating.
And it's one of the things that, because we both had our own companies and ended up working on some projects side by side.
Yeah.
And very quickly realized, we can do a lot more together than the two of us will ever do apart.
So that's a great answer and really good observation. You've broken through some sort of barrier where you had the business running to a point where you could kind of step back and look at it. Instead of just running, you could see the running track. If that makes sense, right? The forest for the trees. Inside that model of entrepreneur, manager, and technician, when you're on the tools, like when you actually have the tools in your hand, when you're an installer and you're hanging a French cleat or something, whatever you're doing, you're the technician.
Yeah.
When you're managing the numbers, and earlier you mentioned we're not strong at tracking numbers.
Mm-mm.
I want to tell you something about that in a second as well. So remind me to talk to you about the dashboard. If you can scribble that in your notes. But that manager is looking at measuring things in the company. It's the same for every business. It doesn't matter if you're a multi-billion-dollar global pharmaceutical manufacturing company, you still have managers. Mm-hmm. You still have technicians. The technicians are the pharmacists and the scientists are doing their thing. In our case, it's hanging cabinets and working the machinery, right? The entrepreneur also fills the same role regardless of the company. We're thinking about the future and the vision. So right now in this meeting here that you and I are having, you're actually in entrepreneur mode.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're asking me the questions, hey Dom, how can I, ... Or what if, ... What could we do differently? How would that look? What are the tools? Those are future focused type of conversations. Just for fun, by the way, which one of those three roles do you think I'm being in? Dominic Rubino, business coach, business.
Well, I mean, you're a one-man operation, so you're going to spend most of your time as the technician.
You got it. Yeah. I'm in technician mode. And I'm in technician mode because you asked the question I have to answer. I've got to add value. I have to dance when you turn on the music, right? So it doesn't matter. I mean, and after this interview is over, after this coaching is over, I go back into entrepreneur and manager mode in running my business. Yeah. So we go between those roles all the time. So that's my suggestion for you on that technician side is maybe go back and reread or listen to the E-Myth Revisited and pay attention to that part where he talks about the splits between thinking like an entrepreneur, thinking like a manager, and a technician. Based on something else you said, can we redirect this conversation?
Yeah.
You mentioned that being a technician could be holding you back. Have you ever thought that now your tools are different as you become a business owner?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. I mean, my guys are the most valuable thing I have out in the shop right now. You
got a big gold star, Jeff.
Yeah.
Our people.
Well, I know. I look back at it was. I started reading The Toyota Way.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
And got a little bored. But the thing that stuck out most was they talked about automation and how that your processes have to be completely dialed in with people before you can automate them because people can shift. people can do something different tomorrow.
Yeah.
That expensive machine is going to do the same thing it was designed to do. And you can't afford to replace it.
It's a dowel bore machine. It's all it does. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. So as we, you, me, anybody, and really any business, as we grow as a leader, our people become our tools. Back in the days when pro sports was still being played and watched on television, I wonder if you've ever had a chance to sit back and think, I'm watching the field, let's say it's a football game, and that quarterback is great and that O-line is awesome, but what I'm actually watching is the coach's vision happening on the field, because the coach is using those players as his tools. Yeah. He selected the coach, he selected the quarterback and the plays. He selected the lineup. And what we're seeing on the field is actually the coach's vision. We put all the glory into the players because that's what we see. But actually the genius behind the thing is that coaching staff, that leadership staff who said, this combination of skills and talents used in this way is going to produce what we want. Winning team, losing team, tie, whatever it is, right? If you're watching Italian soccer, they're just going for the tie. They're always trying not to lose, which is why my home country never wins the World Cup. They're trying not to lose. They're not actually trying to win. Boy, I'm going to get flamed on social media for that comment, but that's okay. Okay, switch gears again here.
Yeah.
If that's okay. Let's talk about this comment or this observation or this feeling you have of that we're not tracking numbers. Why would you say that? Why would tracking numbers be a question?
I mean, to me, the biggest thing is being able to estimate jobs easier. And if I don't have the information to work from, I'm still just guessing. And like we have estimation spreadsheets that we've built for doing standard casework. Okay. And I can bid casework so fast. But all this other stuff we do, that's just, the architect's next new idea. Every time we're sitting there going, I wonder. But a lot of times we go, oh, this is similar to that job we did 2 years ago. But I don't have any information on anything from 2 years ago. And then now that it's in my guys' hands, I need to know how fast they did it.
Right.
Because I know my technical skills, and I go, oh, I could spend this much time doing that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean
you estimate how much time it takes.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
So
do you have just breaking it apart a little bit, do you use any sort of time tracking?
We started to, and I mean, it's one of those things where just like most business owners, we have an idea, we run with it, and we lose steam pretty quickly. Yeah. And over time, we start to, you give up on some and realize, oh, it's okay. That not that that's not a problem, but that's not the problem right now.
Yeah. How? Let's imagine an alternate universe, right? We've got you're called West Side Design Works.
Yep.
And we live in this universe. Now, in an alternate weird universe, there's another West Side Design Works. Jeff and Jacob run that one as well. But in that one, you had all of your numbers laid out like the dashboard of a car or like an airplane. And they could see the gauges tell them, how many hours we're using, what our profitability is, what our maintenance schedule is on our machinery in the shop, all of those things. What do you think the difference would be in those two companies that I would see from the outside?
In some ways, I don't know that the difference is huge. But it's as you look towards growth, like the difference for those companies last year might not be that different, but the company that knows exactly how much it's going to cost. And then if I start tracking my numbers and realize, oh, we can do this, twice as fast as we used to.
Yeah.
Let's knock 10% off that price and see if we can get all of it, and become the people that do every bit of whatever it is in our region.
Yeah.
Because if we're better at it, we can make more money and still charge less.
And with confidence.
Yeah.
So we call it a dashboard. And there's a really easy exercise that I can give you now for both you and Jacob to go do. Do you mind scribbling this down?
No, not at all.
So I know that we're in a time of COVID right now, but if you guys already work together, so what you need to do is remove all distractions and sit in the office.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a very simple exercise I want you to do, and you can facilitate this since you're on the call with me. And obviously, you can hear the recording later. Hi, Jacob. Sorry you're not here. Congrats on the baby. All that stuff.
Yeah.
But what we're going to do is a two-part exercise. One of them is called Beach in Hawaii, and the other exercise is called Please Buy Me. And so, Jeff, what I want you to do is facilitate that exercise with your partner. So you need to be in a quiet room where you're not bugged. Coffees are hot when you start. They'll be cold when you're done, but it won't take that long, okay? So the first exercise is this. I want you both to think that you finally have made enough money and have enough time to take a vacation. You can take your families. One of you can take your family to Hawaii. The other one's staying back at the shop. You're there for a week. You promised your wife you weren't going to work. You're just going to focus on you and the kids.
Mm-hmm.
So it's Wednesday at 1. You're sitting on the beach in Hawaii, and you lean over to your sweet wife. You give her a kiss on the forehead, and you say, honey, it's Wednesday at 1 o'clock. I've got to go back to the room. I'm going to call Jacob for 1 hour. And she says, okay, you promised just 1 hour. And you go, yeah, honey, I did. So the kids won't even know I'm gone. So you go back up to the hotel room, and you call Jacob. What do you need to know about the operations of the company in that 1 hour? And so what your job now is write those things down. So give me a couple of things you would talk to Jacob if you were at a different location and you want to see how things are going at the shop.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I don't know. I mean, it is that tip, like, you know, he's out of the office right now. He just had a kid.
There you go.
And,
yeah.
You know, the phone calls it tends to either be like a quick, like, hey, I don't know where to find this information. So like either a quick panic moment.
Yeah.
Or just like, yeah, everything's fine. We're good. You know, one of the things is like at our size, we've been able to get by on hard work and what I call good habits.
Yeah, that's only going to take you so far. So I want you to, let's continue this exercise for a second.
We
Jeff.
know what to do, but okay.
Yeah. So write down those things. Write down the questions. You're going to ask the normal questions. How's it going with this project? Did Tim show up for work today? Did Tina show up for work today? All those things. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So the second part of the exercise is I want you to get yourself in the mindset that you're both sitting there and you have a company very close to you, like also in Colorado Springs. You know them very well. They're kind of friends of yours in business. You like them. You respect them. They do exactly what you do. But the owner of that company calls you up out of the blue and says, hey, Jeff, I have some sad news. My wife is ill and I need to take care of her. I can't run the business and take care of her. Will you guys please buy me? Before you'll even consider buying this company that you know, love, and respect, what would you insist on knowing about that company? And then you need to write a list of those things down. And typically you're going to say, we need to know sales, we need to know profits and profitability, we need to know what the status of the equipment is, what the jobs in progress, work in progress, all of those things. Between those two exercises I just did, you can create a dashboard for your company. Because in those two exercises, you've just pulled out of yourself the most critical things you need to know at any given point in time. That's the manager mindset that we talked about in the email, where you've got a good control of the numbers. And once you have a good control of the numbers, you move from being reactive in the business to being proactive in the business. Because you can see that, like you just said, you can see the trends. Oh, we did a job like that 2 years ago, and now we're doing this job now. We're pretty sure it's going to cost this much to produce. Does that make sense as an exercise?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, if this was a regular coaching, I would say, and other people listening who are actually work with me, they're going to know what I'm going to say next, which is WWW, which is not the internet. It stands for who is going to do what by
when.
Yeah. So you're going to say, well, Dom, I can't do it next week or the week after, but I can have that done in 3 weeks. Okay. Whatever the date is, right? But that's the accountability.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about that dashboard for a second. Do you think that's something that would work in your company? Having, let's say, a whiteboard that you and Jacob could look at to look at the operations?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I mean, you know, the biggest piece of information I would like to see is, you know, and we're working on this, but it's a difficult thing. And I understand it, that actually keeping track of time, not just for our guys, not just their timesheet, but for the project.
For the project, yeah. Imagine the value that would bring you, the knowledge.
Yeah, and then to be able to look back and go, oh, last time we did a project like this, we didn't make any money. And the other thing about not keeping track of numbers is it is easy to do a job, not actually make any money on it, and not know.
Oh,
because
just sent a shiver.
If the bills are paid and there's money in the bank,
yeah,
you think you're good.
Yeah,
but you might have done a job that you didn't actually make any money on, and we would have been better off just saying, "Hey, we'll pay the guys to retool the shop or figure out what we can do next."
To sweep, yeah.
The
coaching tool and exercise I would take you through on that is the end of job report. And I know you're a listener to the podcast, so you probably have heard the episode on that. It's called the EOJ report. Or, and this was a fall flat on my face, I wrote an article for Forbes magazine just before COVID hit called the Leprechaun Report. And there's a long story behind that, but we needed to do something for St. Patrick's Day in Forbes. And so anyways, if you do an end of job report, that's where you finish the job for, let's say, that engineering firm. And at the end of the job, after everything's really closed out, you sit down and you go through all of your estimated costs and your actual costs together, you and your partner.
Yeah.
And you have a real discussion about it. At the end of that meeting, you also look at each other and say, on this job, I think we either lost money or time doing X or Y. And here are my suggestions for fixing it in the future. And you might say our delivery van is too small, or geez, we need dock loading, not level, not grade loading, whatever comes up. The information you get by doing the end of job reports is the information you were just talking about.
Yeah.
So do that as well. All right. So do you think, so I'm going to clarify right now that this project, let's take the dashboard as an example, because today we're just doing a half hour of coaching so that I can get these all in this episode. What do you think the challenges would be putting a dashboard in place in the company?
I think just really getting on the guys to keep track of time based on projects. And then just keeping up with it. I think, I mentioned it talking to you briefly the other day. There's definitely times where I could sit down. I want to sit down at the computer and go through some numbers, but there's still work that needs to be done. And I feel torn between, sitting in the office and figuring out how we make money versus being in the shop and making money. But I know that it's definitely a bit of a short-sighted vision. I need to be more concerned about how much money I make next year as opposed to tomorrow.
Yeah. There's, you've actually touched on something really wise. If we use that entrepreneur manager technician model that I talked about from the email, the amount of time you spend in entrepreneur mode doesn't correlate to value. Like even if you're spending 99% of your time in technician mode, it's okay as long as you also spend 1%. So out of a 40-hour work week, 1% isn't very much to spend thinking about the big things, the numbers, right? Or listening to this podcast, whatever you do, whatever you're doing to think about the future. So keep doing that and just keep moving forward one step at a time and set that expectation with yourself. So we'll go back to the dashboard for a second. I don't know that Jacob will or won't be on board with this, but he is your partner. So you're going to have to talk to him about that.
Yeah.
You're going to have to create a dashboard, and then you're going to have to agree on the dashboard, and then you're going to have to keep the dashboard alive, fill it in every week.
Yeah.
Where do you think the critical constraint, where's the bottleneck in that in your mind?
The bottleneck is us actually, keeping it alive. That's how it works.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it's something that we just have to say, okay, every Monday morning or every Friday at the end of the day, we have to actually compile this information. And then that's also where we start to learn where, because like I said, the hardest to me, like upfront, the hardest part is actually keeping track of time on everything.
Yeah.
And getting the staff to do that. But if on a weekly basis, we're actually going, all right, who is and who isn't, then we know where to, we know who to talk to, or just,
so
the mindset of just how to make that easier. Because that's
so
the whole goal. Like, how do we make
the two things I'm hearing from you now that are holding back the company, at least in your estimation? We have to talk to Jacob as well.
Mhm.
The two things are making sure we have a meeting that we hold with ourselves once a week,
Yeah.
and making sure the guys track time. That's
Yeah.
the thing. That's the big beast hiding in the closet, the boogeyman under the bed. And geez, man, if you tackle those, what will the company look like, as you said, in a year? Maybe a little bit different. But after 2 years, after 3 years, after 4 years, how different does the company look?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's, it's been nice. We've been growing every year. And things keep getting a little better. But that also makes it easy to kind of go like, oh, we're doing everything fine. But I know we could do it better.
Well, you're not wired for fine, especially because you do architecture millwork and you have a background in furniture design. You're a natural tinkerer and challenge yourself all the time, right?
Yeah.
It's just your comfortable place is to like, how can I do that better? How can I make that cut finer, or make that surface, look a little different? If we were to, let's wind things down now. Let me ask you this. I always end coaching meetings with takeaways and action items. So based on what we talked about today, what's the action that you're committing to take?
The action would be to, have a scheduled meeting with Jacob on a weekly basis where we make sure that any pertinent information that we can collect is actually getting collected.
Nice.
And we have put some time tracking in place. And honestly, I haven't really kept up with how well are the guys doing this right now.
Yeah.
And then also we have a job that we recently finished that we have probably enough information to do our first end of job report. Boom. I mean, we've done that on the back of a napkin before. But we can build a template for it and make it easier so that we can just do that.
Back of the napkin's fine as long as you do it.
Yeah.
And you know what? Maybe that's the reward you guys get for closing out a job is you and your partner go to a local restaurant and you just take the back of a napkin and you say, how do we do in that job?
If we ever get to go to restaurants again.
I know. You know what I mean though, right? But you could always say, let's go get a coffee. And if we think we made money, we'll go to, a nice coffee shop. And if we think we didn't, we'll go to 7-Eleven and get their coffee.
Yeah.
Sit in the truck.
Yeah.
But, okay, so there's 2 action items. If I heard you correctly, have a scheduled meeting with Jacob weekly. And number 2, do an end of job report.
Yeah.
What's your realization or your takeaway? Sometimes it's just an aha moment. Like as we were talking, you suddenly realized this.
I think we're at this point where we're going from this little startup to, in some ways a real company.
Yeah.
And the aha is like, I can't just worry about getting the job done anymore. And we've made that mistake in the past. We get on a big job and all we do is worry about getting that job done. And then we get it done and we go, oh, we don't have anything to do.
We don't have another job.
Yeah. So the big thing that I'm focused on at the moment and the aha of this is like, stay continually focused on the future and put systems into place to know that the job's getting done without having to be the one that does it.
The great news is here, you've already become a master of your technical craft. And so you already know how to get to mastery in something. So now you've got to be a master of management and it's just tracking numbers now.
Yeah.
And the discipline to do it. And so if you could tie that discipline of that meeting to something, like you said, Fridays at 4 or whatever it is, if you can tie it to something that happens, then you both know. And it can be as easy as setting an alarm in your phone, both of your phones. That ties you to doing it. All right, Jeff, that was a half-hour coaching. How did you feel?
I enjoy it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You seem like you're pretty open to change and new ways of, looking at things.
Oh yeah. One of the things I say on a regular basis is I would rather have someone show me all the things I'm doing wrong than tell me all the things I'm doing right. Because I already kind of know what we're doing well.
I enjoy the same thing. I like being a student. I like learning. You'd think that, so I like going to the gym in the morning. and we do Olympic lifting. And, you know, it's pretty easy. Get that bar from the floor up over your head. It doesn't sound hard. Then the coach comes over and he's like, your knee's in the wrong spot because your foot's in the wrong spot because you're on your heel, not your toe. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was pretty good. He's like, no, do it again. Take weight off. You're a goon.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes just because you got it done doesn't mean it was done well.
That's right. Doesn't mean you did it well or properly. And they're like, you're going to hurt your back. I'm like, well, okay. You know, you go back and do it again. So I agree. Sometimes having that perspective is the value.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jacob, I'm sure you're listening to this somewhere in the future.
Yeah.
So congratulations on the new one. And I wish you were here on the call with us. But both Jeff and Jacob, thank you so much for participating in this. Episode 100. I think we're going to do this again for episode 200 because it already seems like people are very interested in hearing, you know, the live conversation that we're having.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I enjoyed it. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Jeff. Have a great day.
Yeah. You too, Dom.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Well, what did you take away from that coaching meeting? I mean, what as you were listening to that, did you just listen for entertainment or did you listen to pull a nugget out, pull out something you could change, pull out something maybe you think, wow, okay, we're doing that right. Let's keep doing more of that. I'm very impressed with Jeff's observations in his company. Like right away, he understood that he has a communication bottleneck. And I hear there's lots in this industry, specifically with regard to architectural millwork, where people say, well, you know what, Dom, you know, lean manufacturing, continuous improvement doesn't work because we never make the same thing twice. We're not stamping out widgets. Well, as you've heard Rick Tack say on this show and other lean experts say on this show, you're full of crap if that's what you think. We're talking about systemizing the processes. The production will have some customization to it. And the way you do that is having systems and processes you believe in, and then you communicate well about them. And that's exactly what Jeff and I were discussing here. So that's interesting. I liked one of the things, I just went back and listened to this before I recorded this piece here, is that he feels that lack of info keeps him stuck and gives him a lot of stress and does not allow him to focus on growth. So he's now, you know, what he said there is what we hear a lot when people say, Dom, we're ready for the next level. Well, as you probably know, if you take that sentence apart, it doesn't mean anything, but it's full of emotion. Like, we're ready for the next level. We're here. Maybe we're a little bit frustrated. Maybe we got things figured out. I could see the light at the end of the tunnel, but we haven't entered the tunnel yet. You know, all of those things. And that's what he's saying here is I want to focus on growth. That means to me, he's ready for the next level of whatever you want the business to be. You know, higher revenues is not always the goal. Less stress, more clarity, more profit. You know, don't run a business to make more money. Run a business that gives you more profit. For instance, those of you who own your shop may one day be faced with a conundrum, a problem, when somebody comes and offers you a ton of money for your land, and you're going to be faced with the decision: do I sell the land? Let's say you bought your building, just for sake of it, in the 80s for $1 million. I don't know where you live in the world or in the country, and you might be laughing at that number, but just use it as a number. It doesn't matter what the number is. You bought it in the 80s for $1 million. And here we are right now, and you know, we're in the year of the 2000s, and a developer comes along and offers you $22 million for that land, for that building that you invested in. What would you do? If you're a business person, you're going to take that offer. You're going to take that deal because you're in business to make money. Regardless, if that money came in through the real estate, you're going to take that. You got $22 million. You can go open a shop somewhere else. But are you going to really look at that as a technician, as we talked about here, and say, well, you know, I'm a cabinet maker. By rights, I shouldn't deserve a $22 million paycheck. Darn right you should, my friend. You're doing the hard work now. I mean, listening to this show, I try not to make the show hard work, as you can probably tell. I try to keep it light and entertaining and educational and on point, and drop the hammer when I need to. So if you turn down that 22 million when somebody comes knocking at the door, you really have to give yourself a checkup from the neck up, because you're not in it for the right reason, right? So what I was impressed with Jeff is that he said, I'm focused on growth. I'm ready for the next level. What does that mean to him? Well, he started to build role charts. He started to understand how the people operate in his company. He's starting to compartmentalize things so he can have a easier time managing it. I hope you got a lot of takeaways from this episode. We've got 2 more episodes coming in this particular cabinet maker profit system 100. I'm so happy we're at episode 100 ourselves, but this episode here has 3 different coaching segments in it from all different types of cabinet makers and architectural millworkers. Jeff is one of those, and what he expresses about being the technician and being overly skilled might be the kind of thing I won't say struggling with, but the same thing you've realized. The same thing you may have realized in your business. I can do that faster. Or when I estimate a job, I estimate it at the speed I do the work. Well, as you and I have probably seen all around us, that if you find a rock star, somebody who's close to as good or as fast or cares as much as you, they're probably still only about 80% of you. I don't have a reason for that. I'm not smart enough to know what the explanation is. I'm barely getting by myself. So let's have that understanding. But it seems to pass all the time that your greatest number 2 person is about 80% of what you can do. And then that's your number 2 person. Your number 3, 4, and 5 are some, number less than that. So keep that in mind. The expectations that we place on ourselves are different because we're internally motivated as the owner. We own the company. We own the responsibility. Our minds are firing at all times on all cylinders. It's not the same for other people. And so 80% out of your next rock star is pretty darn good. So be ready to hand that off and delegate it, just like Jeff and I were talking about here. Anyways, I'm going to stop because you're not supposed to listen to me on this podcast. You're supposed to listen to the guests. So let's get to the next guest on this one, which is Kaiton Yawney. Talk to you on the other side. Hello, my friends. Let's keep going with episode 100 here on the Cabinet Maker Profit System podcast. All 3 of these interviews happened on different days, weeks apart, and we're doing the editing in-house to make it seem like they all happened back to back. They did not. So our next guest is Kaiton Yawney, and he's from Cabinetry Plus in Wisconsin. He's owned the business for 3 years. He came to the business and to the industry by buying a company in this industry. And I wonder how many of you out there are in that similar situation. In the pre-interview that I've done with Kaiton, it sounds like we've got a systems and a process question that's probably going to hit the table, and maybe something about not just the production side, but the sales side as well. So stay tuned. We're going to hear from Kaiton Yawney, and we're going to wrap this piece up in about a half hour. So let's see what the coaching takeaways are for our friend Kaiton. I'll talk to you on the other side. Kaiton, how are you?
I'm doing great, Dominic. How are you?
I am good. I'm good. Thank you so much for joining me here for episode 100 of Cabinet Maker Profit System.
It's an honor. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, before we get into the show, can you tell people a little bit about yourself, who you are, and how you come to be talking to a group of cabinet makers all around the world?
Sure. I am the owner of Cabinetry Plus. We're located in Wisconsin. I have been the owner of the business for just shy of 3 years, as we're talking today, about 1 month. Before that, I had never owned a business. I was not an entrepreneur. I have an accounting background. Not in manufacturing either. So it was a big jump for me. I wanted to be out on my own, and I won't bore you with the details of how I got involved with this company, but long story short, I bought the company from the previous owner. It was founded originally in 1998. And my first 3 years in the company have been a little erratic, to say the least. So okay. I have figured out why people say don't go into business. I have become a struggling business owner. So,
and you're an accountant. You've got that analytical side to you. So that's an interesting overlay.
Yes, which means I'm constantly looking at money too. It's like, oh, money. So then I see all the problems with that. But it's I love doing it. I love being where I'm at. I just want to get better.
Well, and this is a great way to do it. Thank you. I put the call out to the world, quote unquote, and said I'm looking for a few guests for the show. So I'm glad you reached out. This is fantastic. We're going to keep this to a half an hour, and I'm going to try and dig into one issue for you and get some clarity with you around that issue, try to come up with some action items, some insight, and allow you to also look at the issue and come back at it from what I'm talking about and pick away at it and say, what about this and what about that? And let's develop that so you get a lot of value from this call, And then we get a lot of value listening to your thought process as you go through this. And I love the fact that you came at this from an accounting side, because a lot of people listening don't come to this with a numbers background.
Great. Looking forward to it.
All right. So if I was to ask you what you think the most serious bottleneck is, or the most frustrating or concerning bottleneck is in the company right now, what would that be?
I would say a lack of processes, documented systems, whatever you want to call it.
And, okay, where in the company?
I would say from start to finish. Okay. I will say that manufacturing, because our manufacturing side of things, we do a really great job. We create a great quality custom product, but the way that we go about it sometimes is not good. I think our sales process needs a lot of help. We've got a sales team of 3, and each of those 3 people does it a little bit differently, or maybe a lot differently.
Yeah.
So being able to say this is our process from start to finish is something that we definitely need.
What's the impact? Or if you could point to a situation or a story that tells you think systems and processes are the bottleneck, what would that be?
Going back to the accounting, I always look at cash flow. So in our industry, it's standard to collect a down payment. Mm-hmm. Well, we run into problems with trying to collect that from certain builders that we work with. Mm-hmm. Or certain homeowners like to say, well, we're not, we don't want to pay 50%, we want to pay 25%, or whatever that looks like. And the sales team will go with that. They won't push too hard to say, no, this is how it has to be done. Mm-hmm. And then the same thing on the back end with collecting the money once the cabinets are delivered.
Right. So it's a cash flow issue. It's a full cycle cash flow issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I give you a high five?
Sure.
I think you're very wise to have identified that issue starts with the marketing and the sales, and that it's not a collections issue. Right? It actually starts with the expectations we set with the clients in the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you could only fix one system or one process in the company, it's the only one you're allowed to fix. You only have one. Which system or process would you fix?
I would require down payment for every job that comes in. We would not begin to even put that job towards production until we have that down payment.
Have you been caught out on that, where you've started a job and maybe you finished a job and you find you're out of cash?
Yeah. I mean, cash flow is always a problem, and it's, you can look to one major job where you haven't collected anything and say that that's holding us back. But, more specifically, it's why don't we have the money? We're the ones putting all the risk. If that customer backs out, then we've got to go through a whole legal process to obtain that.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we haven't had to do anything like that yet. We've just had to wait a long time to receive some payments.
And you become a lender. You're the bank.
Right.
Congratulations, you started a bank.
Doesn't feel like it.
It doesn't feel like congratulations, because you're not getting fees and service charges and tellers behind the counter.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're for everybody listening, that's a micro lending. You're micro lending in the local community for people, just really based on, it sounds like a communication issue in the marketing and sales part of the company.
Yeah. Just
for clarity, because it's not just in marketing and sales, but if you then had a chance to fix 2 things in the company, what would be the second thing after you fixed or put a system in place for down payment for every job? What do you think the second thing would be?
I'd probably look at our production and shore up our lead times.
And again, if you don't mind me asking, we're going to choose just one of these, but on production and shoring up lead times, can you tell me a situation where that has front and center? You've seen it exactly. You've seen the problem exactly because of production and lead times.
Yeah. Really all year, we've been busy all year, and maybe it's busy. So we've had an incredible backlog, and we just can't seem to kind of push through that barrier of getting through it. The revenue each month is not where it should be, because we're not getting stuff out the door, and we're hearing lead times of 10 weeks and 12 weeks. And when I ask my staff what the problem is, the answers have been, we've got some difficult jobs. We got to get through it. We're just going to get through it. We got to push through. We got to work harder. And then overtime comes involved.
I was just going to say, then overtime. So death by 1,000 cuts, it feels like.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's focus on one of the, thank you, by the way. That's very observant. So what you're saying is the company's stretched. Like, your whole process is stretched out, and money's falling out the leaks in between. We call them the profit leaks. If we could choose one of those right now today to give you some firm action items, would it be getting down payments for every job and firming up the sales and marketing cycle? Or would it be production and shortening lead times?
I guess I would go with production.
Okay. Not down payments for every job.
They're neck and neck.
I know I forced you to choose one. Maybe, who knows? Maybe we'll hit two.
Yeah.
Okay. So, let's do production for a second. If you could wave a magic wand and fix something in the company, what would it be? So we're going to go with production and lead times. If you could wave that magic wand and fix that, what would that look like? Lay out your perfect scenario for me.
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, we'd be leveraging technology to schedule everything.
Uh-huh.
So, there would be a set system to say the first thing that happens is, the cut list goes out to the CNC. We cut all the materials there. Then those get taken over to this area. Then, somebody's working on face frames, somebody's working on the edge bander. However that looks, there's a set schedule, and
right.
It's already laid out by the time that job gets to the warehouse.
Okay. Are you ready for me to share probably one of the most boring topics I could ever share?
I'm an accountant. I love boring.
Tax codes. Okay. I'm going to suggest that you sit down, and you've heard me say this before on the show, but leave the office, go get yourself a coffee. I know right now you might not be able to sit in the coffee shop, but sit in your truck or your car. But with that coffee and a blank book, a blank piece of paper, I'd like you to write down your whole business operations flowchart. And I know that does not sound sexy, so draw a cute picture, like whatever you want. But from marketing all the way down to collecting final money, okay? And Kaiton, the reason I want you to do that is so that you're very analytical minded, I would assume, having gone into account. Having that analytical look, when you can stand back and look at the whole process on paper, you're going to learn something. One of my clients actually explained it to me very, very nicely. He said, Dom, I get it. It's actually not the steps. It's the gaps in between the steps where I'm having the problems.
I think that's well put.
Yeah. So if you can do that, and obviously you can take notes now or you can listen back to this episode, but make that business operations flowchart. And I'll tell you a trick for doing that is, and this is a trick for making all flowcharts and SOPs, start at the bottom. And then ask yourself the question, what has to happen before that? So if you start at customer hands me final payment, what has to happen immediately before that? And then ask what has to happen immediately before that. And it just makes making that SOP, making that process so much simpler.
That's an awesome idea.
Yeah. So if you put that in place, what do you think the impact would be on the company if you had a big picture that was basically your schematic for how things worked in the business?
Well, I think there would be less confusion. I think ideally we'd have a happy workforce that would say, I know what I'm going to be doing today, and I'm going to be doing this from this time period to this time period, and then I move on to the next thing, and we're more efficient, which means that we can get more jobs out, we can get more money.
Well, I'm about to do my sham wow statement. But wait, there's more. So now you've got your business operations flowchart. I'd like you to take the production part of that out. And do you guys use a dashboard? Do you have a team board where you're looking at production?
No.
Okay.
Outlook scheduling.
Okay. So how big is your shop? How many guys in the shop?
We got about 9-10 guys out in the shop.
Okay, good size cabinet shop. You're a lot like everybody else that listens. So if you can get yourself a large whiteboard and hang that somewhere in the shop or in the lunchroom, somewhere everybody can stand for a meeting, you take the production operations flow chart, which is inside your business operations flow chart, right? So for those of you who are listening to this as an audio, I'm doing the Italian thing where my hands are part of the conversation. But inside the whole operations of the business is the production part. We'll take that production part and make it the left-hand column of that dashboard, right? So machining and edging, sanding, assembly, whatever all those parts are is going to go down the left-hand side. And then across the right, put your job names: Smith, Jones, Lopez, Chan, McLeod, et cetera, et cetera. And now your foreman or you or your production manager or project managers can have an intelligent conversation about the future and the current state of each job right there on that whiteboard. So one of the things that I think would help you is communication inside the company.
Okay. Yeah.
Are you guys
definitely.
communicating now? Do you have regular meetings?
We do. As far as the production goes, I'm not involved. So if I were to say, where is the stage of what stage is the Smith job? We'd probably have to walk down into the shop and actually see where everything is.
Yeah. What do you think? How would you feel if you're able to walk down in the shop and see, what did I say? Smith, Jones, Lopez, blah, blah, blah. But you could see Smith job is at CNC. The Lopez job is almost ready to deliver. The whatever Henderson job is stuck in finishing, whatever it is, but you could see it all in one shot.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. So it's relatively simple tools. The key to all of this, Kaiton, is to really keep it dead simple. And I suppose the hard part, and I've felt it as well in companies that I've run, is when we're in it day to day, it's hard to make it simple because we can't step away.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so if we were to stop the meeting right now, which we're not, we got a few more minutes, but if we were to stop the meeting right now, what would be your action items so far?
Oh, definitely what you just said about getting the whiteboard and getting everything aligned so we could know where all of the jobs were. And obviously to do that, we've got to know what our production cycle is. So I've got to work back to do that first.
Yeah. Production cycle. Great. Okay. If you feel comfortable with some action items there, how long do you think it would take you to put that in place to a level where you're happy with it? You see the dashboard, the team is using it, and you're having good communication around where each job is. Being realistic, is that a 1 week thing, a 2 month thing, a 6 month thing?
I'd say probably a couple of weeks.
Is your foreman or the production manager bought into those kinds of changes?
Possibly.
Okay. So that is one potential roadblock, right? So this could take, did you say a few weeks or a few months?
Weeks.
Okay, sorry, I was writing and talking at the same time. What do you think the objection or the concern from your production manager might be?
Probably willingness to sit down and actually go through the whole process. To really to dive in for a couple of hours to say, okay, let's look at the production cycle and see how it goes. There might be some friction there to say, well, I'm too busy to do that.
Right.
It's just busy work.
So to build the actual production flowchart?
Right.
Well, the good news is it takes minutes. Now, I've done it a bunch of times, so I got it down to minutes, but it might take you 10 minutes, especially if you do it in reverse.
Okay.
Right? So do you guys do your own install, or do you?
We have a subcontractor that we use.
Okay. So really the end of production for you, as an example, is getting it on the truck and out the door, or loading it onto his or her van, right?
Yep.
Okay. So that's
actually, we have our own truck, but yeah.
Okay. There you go. So load it onto truck. So what's the step immediately before loading it onto the truck?
Wrap up the doors.
Yeah.
Have it staged.
Yeah. That whole thing, right? And then what's the stage just before that? It's probably quality control. And what's the stage?
Well, quality control, installing drawers and doors, and then finishing.
Yeah. So you see how fast we just went 3 steps up. So you might be able to do that process with him very quickly. And you're the boss. You get to tell him what to do with his time. This is a wise use of time. that's really going to take the stress off him. I mean, he probably goes home every day pulling his hair out too. So that's a little bit of solutions there, if you don't mind me doing that. So that's one of the objections or concerns your production manager might have, and I hope at least a solution. What's another thing? What's his typical response when you try to introduce change?
I have employees that like to fall back on their experience. As I stated before, I don't have any in this industry, so I'm coming in fresh. And so that's a roadblock, because everybody's been doing this for so long. They know the way to do it, and they've been doing it the same way for quite a while.
Yeah. You ever seen a football coach?
Yes.
You only get one answer, fat or fit?
Fat.
Fat. And yet all the guys on the field?
Fit.
Fit. Could crush him, right? The coach is not the greatest quarterback, not even the wide end, receiver, D-line. What the coach is a leader. And the coach has those people. One of my clients, a cabinet shop about your size, actually said it to me very nicely a couple months ago. He said, Dom, our people are our tools. And it was like a revelation, because he said it a lot more excited. I get it. Our people are our tools. Because he's no longer on the tools. He's got to be in the office managing the guys. So I'm glad they have more experience than you. They're supposed to. But you're the finance guy, the operations guy, the management guy, and they don't have that skill. That's why you're a team. That's why you're a team. This is your company, and you put your house on the line. I don't know that you did or not, but you put some money in to buy the thing. And if you want to paint the walls pink, guess what? They're going to be pink, right? If you want to change the direction of the edge bander, guess what? We're going to change the direction of the edge bander just because I think that's the right thing to do. Go ahead and tell me why that's not. And then you can have a discussion with them, right?
Yep.
I get it. I've been the non-technical guy in every company I've ever owned. So that's maybe your superpower.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So when we are owners and leaders, our power is actually the power of the question. So I'd like you to try doing that. The next time you get resistance from your staff about a change you want to put in place, is instead of answering or telling them what to do, come back to them with a series of questions. Tell me why that wouldn't work. Give me 3 ways you think it could work. Do you have a better suggestion? Do you agree there's a problem? What are some solutions to the problem? And then just let them talk. They'll tell you. And they'll probably tell you what the actual right solution is.
Yeah.
All right. So there's 2. Yeah. Thank you. So there's 2 potential suggestions for you on the production manager. Do you think there's a third objection you'd get from the team?
Just change in general. People fear change sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. But I've always stood there. I've always faced that direction. I like my bench this height. Why does my bench need wheels? Right?
Yep.
Yeah, all of those things. Okay. So what are your takeaways from that piece of the conversation where we talked about putting a whiteboard in place, maybe getting a flow chart put in place? It could take you a few weeks if everything happened the way you want, but the potential constraint inside the company is that will people buy in? And so the constraints that you laid out for me is, well, the production manager set and might not want to change the process. People might call their experience better than yours. So far, what's your takeaway from that piece?
I think it comes down to communication.
How so?
I've got to be a good communicator to convey the changes in why I think they are, and then we have to communicate, as a team to see what the best possible solution could be.
Nice. Yeah, perfect. Good. We've got a few minutes. You want to go tackle this cash flow problem at the top?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So you're okay so far with the pace?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know it's only been 25 minutes?
It's been flying by.
I have a clock on my screen, so otherwise I wouldn't have been able to count. Let's use that same process though, Kaiton, of picking apart a problem and identifying it and just not letting it get away from us. It's a spot on the wall, and we're going to stare at that spot until we get it to do what we want it to do. And the spot on the wall right now is the marketing and sales, specifically getting down payments for every job. We have to solve that, and we've got to do it now. what are some ideas you have right now that you'd like to put in place for fixing, changing your collecting down payment question?
Well, piggybacking off what we just talked about, again, it's communication.
Mm-hmm.
It's that laying out the expectation right from the front. I think the one thing that I can do is to say we're not, the job comes to a stop at a certain point if money has not been received.
Yeah. I think, do you feel fair? Do you feel like you're being an honorable businessman if you say that?
Yeah, I do. The problem that I have, as well as anybody else, is that fear. Oh, if I demand that, they're going to walk away, and then I lose everything.
So if you demand that halfway through the process, they could walk away. But if we changed that conversation and moved it to the front, can I make a suggestion here already?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to be surprised, but I'm going to suggest you make a sales process flowchart.
Yep.
So exciting. I wish it had a more appealing name, but that's really what it is. There's a series of steps. There's actually 7 steps to selling professionally. And we go through that on other episodes. I won't do it here, but there's 7 steps to professional selling. It's not random. It's not ad hoc. It's not made up. And when we control the sales process, we control the outcome, and we actually can manage the relationship for the customer better because I know how to build a custom kitchen cabinet. I'm an expert. They are buyers, and they're looking to me for that guidance. Me being you or your sales rep, right?
Right.
So they actually want to be shown the path to do that. And so if you make the sales process flowchart when you're sitting in the car, having your coffee in the parking lot, scribbling in the book, then think about making that sales process flowchart into a really nice looking PDF, a 1-page document. And that 1-page document is now going to become part of the sales process that you put in front of a new prospect. You're familiar with the term prospect versus client?
Yes.
So a prospect is somebody who's shown interest but hasn't bought yet. A client is only somebody who has paid money. So none of us should be confused about that. Until they pay, they're not a client. And so for a lot of people, that'll be a big facepalm. But when somebody's a prospect, at some point in your sales process flowchart, this form is going to come out. And I'm going to say, Mr. and Mrs. Lopez, can I tell you how we build custom kitchen cabinets? And they'll say, yeah. Well, it's a 7-step process, or 9 or 11, whatever your process is. Say, right now we're here. We're at the stage where we're getting to know each other and we're creating your dream kitchen. Then we're going to do this, then we're going to do that. When we hit this stage here is when we're going to talk about deposits. As you would imagine, there's a deposit required because we have to go buy the materials and get everything started. And then we're going to do this and that. And then the remainder of this bulk of payment is required. And then the laws here in Wisconsin are that final payment is due on delivery date or whatever the laws are in Wisconsin, right? Did you have any questions about how to build a custom kitchen cabinet, Mr. and Mrs. Lopez? And they go, no, I never knew that. Well, there you go. So now the expectations are all laid out. And all you and I have to do, I say you and I as owners, everybody listening, we have to train our salespeople. That's the script. No deposit, no commission. That's your
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Does that system help?
Yeah. You want to come sell cabinets for me?
I can't sell. What are you talking about? I don't know how to sell. But if you could put that system in place, a system that you believe in and that's consistent, that gives you not the power, but it gives you an even playing field, and you're able to pull and push levers. You know where everything is at any given time, and there's no more surprises. And surprises and uncertainty and frustration is what kills all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. We are at 30 minutes and 48 seconds. How's that for,
right.
Hey?
Yeah. Yeah. It's great.
So let me ask you, we're not in a rush here. We're fine. I think we've covered off a lot of ground though. If we stop now though, what is your main takeaway and action item that you're committed to take?
I'm going to have to go through the workflow from start to finish, or more like from finish to start.
Yeah, that's right. In reverse. Yeah. Go through the workflow. Are you, do you have a coffee shop you can sit at? Do you like coffee?
I do. I I drink coffee.
Okay. What day can you go do this?
I think I'm going to do this tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Nice. And can you go into that coffee shop, or do you have to do it in your truck?
I may do it in a quiet spot at home.
Do you have kids that are going to jump on you?
I can close the door.
Can I ask you a favor? I mean,
Yeah.
I wish I could send you the $5, but I think I need you to leave your home office.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is creativity, nothing else. I don't own a coffee shop yet. But what I mean is just to change your environment, because things happen at home or it's comfortable. But if you go to a place where it's new, your creativity will come out, and you'll find a bigger, just you able to swing for the fences a little bit more than sitting in your own office. Nothing against your office, but get out of your environment and you'll get a bigger impact.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
I know is there restrictions in Wisconsin right now?
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Well, within those restrictions and within how you feel comfortable, and don't let me go against anything you and your family feel is comfortable. So that overrides anything I might say. But get somewhere quiet, blank book, favorite pen, maybe a couple of colors so you can draw and scribble, and draw the workflow. Okay, so that's action item number 1. Is there a second thing that you've got in mind to do?
We talked about it again with the whiteboard, getting every job in a stage so we know where everything's at.
I'm taking notes here. So Kaiton, if you put both of these things in place, if you made the changes you wanted to make in the down payment method in your company, and you made this change in the process improvement method in your company, what do you think the 1-year impact on your business would be? $1, $10, $100,000? What would be the impact?
Closer to that $100,000, probably more.
Wow. Okay. So there's some value in doing this.
Absolutely.
Would it be fair to say then, is there a cost to not doing it?
Yeah.
Like, is it $100,000? Sorry, Kaiton, I cut you off.
Leaving all that money on the table, not growing, not getting any better.
Yeah. Yeah. And that money's all your risk. Sorry to add this stress to you.
I know it all too well.
Well, I mentioned this to a client the other day. They had a staff member who was just not living up to the culture of the team. And they've already given out their Christmas bonuses. And the number doesn't matter. But the owner was getting frustrated with me on our coaching meeting. And I said, well, what's the impact of that bonus that they got? Well, they didn't deserve it. They didn't work as hard as everybody else. And da-da-da. And I said, isn't that bonus that you gave an underperforming person stealing from you and your kids? Yeah. I said, did you impact your family's gifts for Christmas this year because of the bonuses you gave staff? And that was I didn't realize I'd hit such a hard spot with that owner, because that sort of took our conversation into another level, I'll just say. But if somebody on your team is not performing, it's not that they're neutral in the company, they're taking from the company. Other people need them to move on to somewhere else. And you specifically, you've got it all on the line. You and I, all us business owners. So they need to go find somewhere else that's perfect for them, but this might not be the place.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, sir. Any closing thoughts?
This has been great. I mean, it's thank you for dissecting that so quickly and just putting action steps to it.
Great. Well, I appreciate you being so open and honest as well, and because it's hard to do this, but you've been very forthright, and I think we've got a couple of actions here that are going to have a big impact. I'm looking forward to actually hearing how it goes. So make sure we stay in touch.
Me too. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thanks, Kaiton.
All right. Thank you, Dominic.
Have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
A lot of takeaways in that one. Kaiton, thank you so much for joining us as a guest here. And again, Kaiton and everybody else who's going to be featured as a guest on this show, you've already heard from Jeff. He was the previous guest. We've got Kaiton now. Coming up next is going to be Matt and Nicole. But Kaiton took action, and he contacted me when he saw that I was doing free coaching. And, free is usually you get what you pay for. But I hope that he got value. And there were so many takeaways. When I went back and re-listened to the whole episode before I recorded this outro piece, and we covered a lot of ground in a very, very short amount of time. So a couple things from Kaiton. First of all, very impressed with that gentleman. He's as open to being open to learning as much as he is to leading a company in an industry he's just learned about. And so for that, my hats are off. And for all of you doing that, for taking a leadership position and taking a company and working to make it more than it is every other day, then congrats to you, because the amount of work and brain power that takes, most people will never understand. They will just not understand it. And when I say that, that's the reason you listen to a program like this, or any of the other people who have shows for construction trades that are doing the same thing I am, is because you want to be around people who are in that success mindset, the mindset that occupies the space that only we have, where we have to think about so many things as business owners. Kaiton did a great job in this interview, in this coaching session, I should say, because it really is a coaching meeting, of laying out on the table what the challenges, the bottlenecks are in his company, and then we together worked on what the opportunity is for him, and some quick takeaways. You can only do so much in a half an hour, but it has to be something real, no BS. It has to be something he can do immediately and get the benefit within 24 hours, right? So just looking back at my notes here, one of the things that he wanted to fix was not getting down payments. No down payment, no production. I wonder how many of us listening have that same issue. Is your sales process broken? Or really, do you have a sales process? Systems and processes set you free. That's a quote from a friend of mine named Vern Harnish, who wrote a book called Mastering the Rockefeller Habits, and he also wrote a book called Scaling Up. Many of you who've listened to this show would have heard me talk about him before, because that's the strategic planning framework that you take a growing business through, so that the owner always has their finger on the pulse of the company, right? So systems set you free. And having a process and a system is one thing, and then guiding your team to follow that darn system. Follow the system. We have a system for a reason. And so when you've got somebody who's not following the system, it's the same as in a hockey game or a football game. Blow the whistle. Pull them aside. You got a penalty. Now, we don't give penalties at work, but pull them aside and say, listen, you got to follow the system. No down payment, no production. So the fact that you're now here screaming at production to get something made when you have a client who hasn't given a down payment, it rests solely on your shoulders, my designer and salesperson friend. Please go back and get the down payment. We are ready and waiting to make their custom woodwork piece. So that was the first thing that Kate brought up. And the second thing, he wanted to fix his production lead times. Long lead times, can't produce. Then it goes into overtime, which is like a triple dip on profitability, and operations. And those of you listening had the benefit of perspective, right? Because you're not in that meeting. So you probably drew the lines yourself before Kaiton and I even finished talking about it. So I asked him to build a business operations flowchart and a dashboard. Those two things in your company are real game changers, and I hope you have a chance to put them in place. Listen, thank you so much for listening. Stay tuned. We've got an exciting interview, I'm sure, because they're super, super, super nice people, with Matthew and Nicole Bordignon. So stay tuned. That's the next episode after this. And again, thanks, Kaiton. All right, for number 3 in our series of live coachings that you get to listen in on and learn from, we're going to be talking to Matthew and Nicole from up in Powell River, Canada. And they have a shop there where they are really serving that small community very, very well. So if you're in a small community, I think you're probably going to like some of the things they have to say. This is a great couple, great attitude, always very happy and forward-looking. So I'm looking forward to hearing what they have to say and what we uncover in today's coaching. All right, let's see what they have to say. Hey guys, how are you?
Good, Dom. You?
Good.
I'm good. Nice to see you.
Nice to see
Thanks
you
for
guys.
having us.
Yeah, Nicole, big smile on your face. Matt, big smile on your face too. That's good. That's good.
Excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited you guys took action.
Thank you.
When I first put the ad out, it was a little bit like asking a girl to a dance, and then she didn't say no. I just didn't get an answer because nobody responded. And then I got this influx of responses, of course, after it had been out for 2 weeks. But you guys were one of the first people to respond. So you get the benefit. You took action. And now you're here. And we're going to do a coaching session live.
Woohoo!
Are you excited about that or nervous? Which one?
A little bit of both, but I think you need both in order to, take it to the next level.
Right.
Yeah, you got to feel the grit. give you a good push.
Yeah. Can you guys tell us a little bit about yourselves and who you are, where you're from, where in the cabinetry world you exist?
So we started Elemental Design and Millwork. We operate out of Powell River, BC. My background is cabinet making. I've been in the trade since, straight out of high school.
Okay.
I've worked for large millwork companies, doing work around the world. And then I moved up to Powell River to have a simpler life.
Yeah.
And we just started doing residential kitchens, and then we started doing our own business, and it's just been fun after that.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. And did you meet Nicole in Powell River, or is she from?
I met Nicole in Vancouver. She was working at the Macaroni Grill.
Yes, I was.
Once upon a time.
Wow. The Macaroni Grill. I don't know if it's still around.
No,
it's not.
It's not.
Yeah. Well, let's move past that. So hang on a second. How big is Powell River? Because we have people listening to the show from all around the world, and quite often, we always think we're in our own bubble, or that our city impacts our ability to be successful. Like, this town's too small, or this town's so big, we've got so many competitors. What is a Powell River? How big is it? Where in the world are you? So that people understand.
We're the upper Sunshine Coast of BC. So we're on the mainland,
right.
But you can't get to us unless you take ferries. And our population here can fluctuate between 20 and 25,000 people, depending on the season.
Depending on summertime.
Yes.
Yeah. So for anybody listening to this show who's listening to this podcast, who's watched the show Alone, they are a 4-hour boat ride from where Alone happened on the coast, right?
Yeah. And the travel time's about 6 with the waits and driving and
to get up there.
to get to Vancouver.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And a lot of people operate millwork shops, cabinetry shops in smaller towns because they want the lifestyle, they want to be their own boss and move to where they've always wanted. So you guys took action on that.
Yes.
So I have to start with this because it's pretty fantastic. But you and I did our intro call, answering your questions and things. How long ago now?
2 weeks?
Less than
2 weeks?
Something like that. 3 weeks, maybe.
Not even. 3 weeks ago? It was the beginning of end of November, I think it was.
Okay. So let's call it 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So what's new in the last 3 weeks since our our coaching call? It wasn't even our coaching call. It was our introductory call.
Well, we really heard you in the sense of who is holding who back. Was the business holding us back? Were we holding ourselves back? Was the industry holding us back? And after the call, we really sat down and looked at it, and we realized that we were holding ourselves back.
Oh.
So we really dug in and took a look at what we needed in order to step into what Elemental desired. And literally 5 days later, after we figured that out, we found a rental space. So we now signed a lease yesterday and got our keys, and we now are going to be working out of 3,300 square feet
3,300
instead of 800.
Instead of 800 square feet. Wow. Yeah. That's pretty exciting.
It's very exciting.
Yeah. Matt, just for those of you who are listening as an audio, you can't see the video is going to be on YouTube. Matt just inhaled. He just went.
I have some breathing room now.
Oh, I thought you inhaled because of nervousness. Like, I've got to produce. But
no,
when we first met, you wanted to produce more.
I'm so excited for the space that I can't wait to get in there.
Yeah.
The shop's my happy space.
Oh, that's great. What was in there before you guys?
So before us, just recently, was a newspaper company that used to sort the newspapers.
Oh, okay.
The ads and stuff like that in together. But due to COVID, they've now outsourced that production and streamlined it back to where they print the paper now.
Okay.
So thank you, COVID, for opening up this space.
There's always a market opportunity.
Exactly, right? And before that was a window company who operated out of there for 20 years until he bought a new building to run out of and expand his company.
We talked about that in our last meeting too, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah. So the reason I asked that is because, Nicole, if I understand correctly, you really take care of the marketing and the sales for Elemental.
I try to. I need to streamline it better, but I try to.
Well, you've got 3,000 of production space that now
I know, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. So will this space allow for a showroom or anything like that?
Yes. Yes.
Even bigger smile on Nicole's face.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm so excited about that because it's been a juggle. So.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Well, very good. Another podcast episode is coming up after this one goes live with two gentlemen that I interviewed who talk about how to bring people into your showroom space and make the most out of it. They wrote a book called Come Back to Bed. Kind of an interesting title. But a really good interview. I just interviewed them 2 days ago, but they won't, I publish, it takes me about 6 weeks to publish an episode. So watch for that one. It'll give you some tips and advice on getting your showroom aligned with who you are as a company, aligned with your position in the market, and making sure that when the right customer walks through the door, you're the right choice for them immediately.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So listen to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, hopefully I didn't flub too much in that one.
I doubt it. You look fire butts pretty good. So
yeah, well, you guys aren't shy about taking action. That's great. So let's get to that taking action. So today we're going to be speaking on behalf of Elemental Millwork, and all of us, the three of us, work for Elemental. Okay. So if we were to look at it from the outside, in this next half hour, what do you think the critical constraint is for the company looking forward?
Oh man, that's a good question. Well, we just solved one of the problems, and that was the tunnel, the bottleneck.
Right.
So I think the next challenge that we would like to look at is streamlining the intake, and what that looks like.
Okay. I'm writing all these down. So keep going. Come up with a list. Streamline the intake.
Finding the right help.
Mm.
Yep.
We've tried having a couple employees,
Right.
And they just weren't the right fit. So finding the right fit for the team, the right attitude, it's really essential. I've come from larger shops that have had 20, 30, 40 guys in there, and I realize there's a special skill to find the right person to fit the team.
Yeah.
And I don't know those tools.
Yeah, that would be a good one.
Okay, so remind me before we get off the call. There's a free download on the website specifically for that. I don't know if you've. Yeah, we'll come back to that though. So first, I've got number 1, bottleneck for space. Number 2, streamline the intake. Number 3, finding the right help, and you said it perfectly, Matt. Attitude is everything. Is there any? There don't have to be any others, but are there any others?
The systems, I'd like to streamline the systems just a bit more so they're not so convoluted.
Which ones?
That's definitely something that I desire. Which ones? All of them. Because we're going into a new space, so I feel like they can all just get tidied up just a little bit better. So
Sure.
That's what I think 2021 is going to be about with that, personally.
I love it. Okay.
Yeah, I wrote a couple more questions. I don't know if these really fit the same thing.
Let's get them on the table.
But now that we're renting a larger shop, and we have new overhead and things we didn't experience before, how do we know we're selling our product for the right price? How do we know we're covering all bases?
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's a very good question.
And then streamlining the communication information, which we just did.
Yeah.
This kind of goes back to your first question a little bit.
A little bit, but
calculating your markup on material.
Calculating our markup on material.
Mm-hmm.
We try to buy in bulk. Like I know to buy in bulk as much as possible. So I try to do like a yearly purchase of my hardware as much as possible. I kind of do a projection of what I think the year's going to be, so I can get the best bang for my buck. But then how do I calculate what sales price I should tack on that?
Right.
Well,
yeah, especially given that if you buy a drawer glide today, it owes you rent if you only install it next December.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, I never thought of that.
It owes you rent. Yeah, guys, I used to, just a quick aside, I've had many companies in different industries. And one of them that I haven't even talked about before is I used to sell used books online. Just because that's random, right? So if I got a free book, I knew that after 1 month sitting on my shelf, it cost me X dollars and cents. And so if it didn't sell by a certain point, I had to either get rid of it or get rid of it by selling it. Something had to happen, but it was costing, it owed me rent sitting on the shelf. And that kind of, I mean, it might sound harsh, especially with a book, because I didn't, throwing away books are the kinds of things that caused World War I and II, right? But I don't want to do that. But at some point, it doesn't make sense to keep that book. I have to sell it, and I've got to reduce the price to get it out of there. But then the labor might not make sense. So I might end up redonating that book for the tax credit. So in my head, I'm thinking as a business owner, that thing on the shelf costs me money. It owes me rent for living here. So I agree with buying stuff in advance, whether a year is the right amount of time or a month, or, Powell River probably has its own distribution issues getting stuff up there, right?
Yes.
Yes, very much so.
But it's interesting to think about getting everything else in the world to pay for the things you need. Right? So if you need a new software, how can you get your clients to pay for that software? Well, that goes into your pricing models. If you need a new CNC, how does that? Of course, you need a new CNC. Who doesn't?
Oh, yes.
That's another
nesting machines so bad.
That is another conversation that anybody who's really into lean manufacturing is listening to me right now, yelling at their. I almost said the radio.
Podcast.
Yeah, back in 1968 when I was born. Okay, so we've got 5 issues that are on the table. Let me read them back to you. And as I read them back to you, think about which single one we can deal with today that would have the most impact on the future. Okay. So number 1 was a space bottleneck, which truthfully, I think you guys have solved for now.
Yeah.
Number 2 was streamline the intake. Number 3 is finding the right help. I'm having trouble finding people with the right attitude. Number 4 was systems, streamlined so they're not so convoluted. And number 5 is with regards to our larger shop and our overheads, are we pricing properly? Nicole, is that correct?
Yeah, totally. I feel like it would be the systems maybe? Or are you thinking the first one?
I think the intake.
You want to do the intake?
Yeah.
Okay. Can we talk about the intake?
Yeah, we can talk about streamlining the intake. Before we get off the call, this is going to sound exactly what it's going to sound like. Your item number 5, that now you're in a larger shop, you wanted to calculate your overheads, and there's a question about pricing. So I've been very busy doing podcast interviews. For those of you who remember Jonah Coleman, who came on to talk about software for a growing shop.
Yeah.
I just interviewed him again under the topic, I'm done with Excel. What's the next pricing thing? And so watch for that episode coming up too. But he actually said something really wise that I know came from Mark Sanderson from Energy. Oh God, I hope Mark Sanderson or Christensen. Sorry guys. But he said there's 2 things. Calculating your cost is one thing, but the cost that you estimate only informs the price you're going to charge. So cost and price are not the same thing. Cost is what's going to cost you in your shop to make this. Price is what you're going to charge me to hang it on the walls of my house. And those are 2 different things, right? So, but we'll deal with that throughout the episodes that are following. But more things for you to consider to answer the questions you've got if we're going to focus today on streamlining the intake. Okay. So let's go to streamline the intake. Tell me a little bit more about why that even hit the table. And I'm taking notes here, so if you see me looking down.
That's a great question.
Okay, let me rephrase it. Tell me about a time when a messy intake impacted things at Elemental. That's like, oh yeah.
I think I'm gonna be really honest. I think it comes down to my system in order to streamline it. Like, I know the customers are coming to us, right? So they're already seeking information and they're already making that first effort. So for me, on my end of things, I mean, I've done customer service my whole life, so I do know how to do it, but I don't feel quite 100% confident in being able to bring it into this line of work. I feel like I'm missing a few details on how to create that trust instead of constantly trying to convince them that they should go with us, because I don't like that. I don't like convincing anybody. I'm all about choice, and you've sought us out, so being grateful that they've even sought us out in the first place.
Right.
So I think that's where my challenge is for myself.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. So we're talking about systems to streamline the business. When somebody's asked for info, so they've inquired, right? And again, these are people who are doing residential renovations or residential. Is it new home or
It's
renos? Okay, so new and reno. And do they have their own designers, or are they coming to you directly?
Directly.
Okay, new and reno, direct to homeowner. And so where does the trust issue that you're talking about, creating trust, are you hearing that from them, that they don't have the trust, or are you feeling like you haven't built trust?
I feel like I haven't built the trust.
And why do you
there's
feel
been
like that?
occasion where we've been questioned on the trust, absolutely, because that's just society in general. I mean, we all kind of question who we're going to trust and who we're not, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I'm definitely going to own it for myself, for sure.
So tell me about a time though, like why did that pop up? What was the issue that made it hit the table? Is there a specific customer, and don't name names?
There's been a few people that have requested references.
Okay.
And I don't see that as being a bad thing, but it's kind of like, okay, well, how can I prevent that step from happening? Like in that sense, like I do understand that, like that's kind of what triggered this thought is as I had somebody ask me for references yesterday, and I was just like, okay, well, how can I create a trust where maybe that's not needed to a degree? Like I get like we have amazing references, and don't get me wrong, but it is still another step for me. Now I have to still put that time in and call customers, and I still have to set up those emails, and that is time and effort on my side, and I'm not complaining by any means, but it's something that I'd like to streamline. If I can eliminate that allows me to spend that hour doing marketing or
other things,
Facebook messages, or or designing the shop, right? So I'm just looking for guidance on that aspect.
Sure. So very interesting. So you got a reference request from a customer, and it's a pretty common thing that we get, and we can understand. We would want a reference as well if we were buying something major. Absolutely. Especially something that's going in our home. It's a reflection of the new us. What's the process in somebody's mind when they finally contact you guys to buy kitchen cabinets? What's going through their head?
Well, they've been beating themselves up about how much they don't like something. So
they especially right now, is what we're finding is that people are realizing they want to create their home to be their happy place. They can't get away, they can't do the traveling, and they're stuck at home, and they're looking at normally it's their kitchen. Sometimes it's other things, but normally it's their kitchen. They're like, this space does not work, right? So they're coming to us looking for guidance, and they know it's a big investment, and it's an investment, right? It's not just a frill, right? So they want to know that they can be confident in us to supply them with something that's going to reflect their investment.
Yeah. Do you think there's pride that goes into it? Because they could get kitchen cabinets from IKEA. Matt's face just went. Matt, for those of you who are watching the video, he had this flicker on his face that the Doberman gets before he lunges at the mailman.
Yeah, you know that.
So don't talk about IKEA to Matt.
No, but I mean, that's an option in the market, right? I mean, if we have a scale of options, IKEA or something like that, RTA stuff. Is down here, and then there's all the way into custom kitchen cabinets, and then you could go into different levels of custom if you wanted to get architectural millwork and do crazy other stuff, right? So that the sky's the limit, really. But what do you think's going through their mind when they've decided to not go IKEA or cabinets, cheap?
I almost feel like they really desire to be seen, and in order for them to be seen, they have to be a little bit vulnerable, and wondering if these people that they've called are willing to even see them that way. So I think that's a little bit of that trust part too. backing that up.
I would have to agree. In my experience in dealing with this industry and answering this question many times, there's a lot of pride. Like, we finally get to build the kitchen we want, and somebody said in their house, I'm going to get the kitchen I want, because, as you said, Matthew, this is going to be the investment, right? So there's a lot of pride that goes into that. So you've actually said a word here already, Nicole, that's really important in this process, and it's the word steps. Because in order for me as a professional to control the outcome, I can't let sales or marketing be random. And it can be random because it's two humans talking, three humans, different decision makers. You might have inspectors coming in or other trades doing work. It seems random. And so what I want to do from my side is I want to control the random, which comes back to your opening questions, streamline the intake. And your fourth one was systems.
So steps.
Steps it's another word for that.
I'm missing a few of them. I think that's.
So here's what I would suggest you do. And we don't have time to do it on today's show, but what I'd like you to do is, and you guys can do this together, is leave the office and go get a coffee somewhere. And I know these days you might not be able to do that, but sit in the truck with a blank piece of paper and your coffee. And at the bottom of the blank piece of paper, write down the last step with a customer.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So the last step is customer leaves us a glowing referral on such and such website, or customer refers us to their friends. Well, what has to happen immediately before that? And then ask yourself, what has to happen immediately before that? And what that allows you to do is you're going to build something called a process flowchart. This is why we drink coffee. Oh, Nicole's clapping. Jeez.
Yay!
Are you the systems person in this three-person meeting?
I create systems everywhere I can.
I love it.
And I just realized how much I love them.
Yeah. Well, this is going to sound double geeky, but systems set us free.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the reason that there's a playbook, a rule book for sports, is because we need a set of rules to operate in. But look at all the creativity that happens on the rink or in the field or on the court when that set of rules exists for everybody. But there's these amazing plays and there's this amazing situation that comes up, but everybody is, largely in the same set of rules. And so those are the steps we need. We need rules for how we are going to, and I have a suggested title for you, by the way, Nicole, to answer this question for your client. How custom kitchen cabinets are made in Powell River. Now you can change that around. I mean, Matt, you had some great lines there with your happy place, your custom happy place. But I don't know how to buy kitchen cabinets because I'm Fred Flintstone, Fred and Wilma. We just want our kitchen made. I have no idea how to do this. When Nicole sits in front of me and says, hey, Fred, would you like to know how custom kitchen cabinets are made in Powell River? I'm going to go, yeah. And you say, well, step one is this. We're going to ask you a bunch of questions. I really want to understand how you use the kitchen, why you want a kitchen. What's wrong with the current kitchen? Why don't you just paint it? I don't know. Why do you need to go through this process that we understand and love, but why are you entering our world, right? The next thing I want to understand is we've been here for years. Why is today the day you're doing it? So I'm going to ask you all those questions. Then we're going to take measurements, then blah, 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 blah. And this referral thing that you were talking about, now you put it where you want in the process. So when Wilma or Fred comes back to you, are you guys old enough to remember Fred and Wilma Flintstone?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. I feel very old right now.
No, we watched.
I should use Ross and one of his wives from Friends as the couple. Maybe that's more
Which
modern.
wife?
Which wife? That's what I mean. Well, Jennifer Aniston, if we're talking about laminated lists. But let's say Fred and Wilma come back to me and say, before we go any further, we want references. Well, Nicole, you'll come back and say, great question. Let's go back to the process here that we follow to make custom cabinets. That's the right question, but we need to do it here. We do the reference checks and have you look at our portfolio of previously completed projects. We're going to do that in our next meeting. And so Fred and Wilma now look at each other and go, oh, wow, these guys are dialed in because it says so on the piece of paper. And that piece of paper becomes God. Like it says so in the process. Well, you and I made the process right here. So I'll go back to leaving the office. I want you to leave the office because I want you to be creative. right? Not that you can't be creative in there, but it's different being in a different space. Get a cup of coffee so that you're settled, maybe jittery with coffee, and have a blank piece of paper, because it's your job to take that blank piece of paper and fill it bottom up. So start at the last step and then build. And the only question you have to ask yourselves is, what has to happen before that? What has to happen before that? What has to happen before that? It saves you buckets of time. Buckets of time. Because if you try to start from the top and go down, what happens is the spider web, Nicole's already, you're laughing. It just goes in a million directions, right?
It does. It's like, okay, well, I don't know. What are we going to do?
Yeah, it just becomes a what if party. Well, what if they say yes? What if they say maybe? Yeah, so just build it that way.
Thank you.
Sure. So that's one idea. That's only one idea for dealing with this. Building trust in the sales process. So take that one down as notes. That's one idea. What's another idea that we could pursue for building trust in the sales process?
Listening.
Mm.
When you sit back and you listen to what they have to say, they're going to feel heard, and it's going to be about them, which creates that trust. So you're there for them.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be listened to and heard. So.
Yeah. Are you getting feedback from them that they don't feel listened to?
From some of the builders that they've said they've experienced. Sometimes they get told what they can do, and with what we offer, like, we're the artist to their creation. It's not at the end of the day, we don't cook in their kitchens, we don't live in their spaces,
right?
So I don't tell my customers what they can or can't do. We can tell them what their options are to really connect to them, right? So that's a big thing. And some of them are really shocked to see how many options they have. Right.
Which, by the way, is great. You're actually entering into the architectural millwork side of things doing that. And that's the kind of shop you came from.
Yeah.
But that can also be a problem in the sales process. Too many options. Analysis, paralysis by analysis, or analysis paralysis.
Yes, we've hit that a few times, where it's like, okay, we need to just hone in on a few options and then hand it over.
Right.
Rather than, laying everything out for them to choose from, because it can be very overwhelming for people.
Right. So how often do you find people in overwhelm mode?
I think everybody is all the time.
I will neither confirm nor deny that. Yeah.
And I can pull it back, but it's like.
Yeah. So when you feel overwhelmed, what helps you get past overwhelm?
Breathing. Yeah, breathing, and just simplifying the steps again, right? Simplifying the steps.
The what do I call it? The web is closing in. That's right. I would agree, is going back to the process.
Yeah.
And so if you guys, one of the things that I trust is people who've gone down the path before, right? So if we were going to hike, or you guys live in a coastal community, so if I was going to take a boat from where you live to somewhere else, but I don't live there, I'm going to say, Matt, tell me how to, you go in your boat, I'll follow you in my boat, because I need somebody to lay out the path for me, right?
Right.
So that's what this process flowchart that we just talked about, how custom kitchens are built in Powell River. And you can change the title as you like, but it should say Powell River in there somewhere, because then nobody else can own that headspace in Powell River. You own it. If your competitors try to do it, they'll see that second and go like, we saw that trick over at Elemental. Those guys know how to build custom kitchens in Powell River. So you guys will own that brand positioning in your market, which is important.
Nice. Yeah.
Okay. So let's move to is that helpful so far?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. So if a storm came and knocked out the internet right now, do you have enough to move forward on?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Great. Sure. We're not done though.
Oh,
So now
okay.
now we need a plan. Now we need a plan and a little bit of accountability to put a bow on this. So given what I've talked about now, and guys can disagree with everything I said, but as long as we take some sort of action to move forward, then it's a win, right? So just amongst yourselves, what's the plan you want to take on what we just talked about?
Go for coffee.
Go for coffee. There you go. Go for coffee. And
get out of the house and go for coffee.
that'd be it. Go for coffee. Go for coffee. And then to talk about
The flow chart.
flowchart. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Starting at the end.
Yeah,
That
that's
really,
awesome.
that really helps out. Like you said, I call it falling down the rabbit hole, of too many options and too many directions. But working backwards, that's never been an idea that's ever come across our minds. So I think that will be a great step.
That can be applied in so many areas in our business too.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Well, that's something even more exciting called the manufacturing operations flowchart. I've got to work on my titles. Very boring. But yes, absolutely. That process doesn't matter what we're trying to do. If we're trying to roll out COVID vaccines across the country, you still have to build a process flowchart. How are we going to do it? And one of my clients actually made an observation, like he pointed something out to me that I'd never seen before. Because after we did this with him, we were working on it for a bit. He kind of blurted out in a meeting, the steps aren't important. It's the gaps between the steps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, okay, that makes sense to me. Because if I've got step 1 and step 2, but we keep getting stuck somewhere in there, it means there's another step has to go in between, right? And I just thought that was a brilliant, simple. But for me, that was like, okay, that means we're getting it.
Yeah.
It's the places.
And closing the gaps is what's important.
Yeah. And then we have control. So now from a management, remember, we're here for Elemental's benefit, not the three of us. Elemental is a different thing. Any company is a different thing. We just work for the company.
Mm-hmm.
But for the company's benefit, we now have a shared language. We know what it means to say we've had a first appointment with the customer. We know what it means to say drawings are completed. We know what it means when we say change orders are submitted, because it could be pre-contract change orders. It could be change orders after production. Whatever words you come up with now become the word.
Yeah.
And then everybody understands it, and Matthew won't go and build the wrong thing.
You do that?
Never.
Never. You never make mistakes, right?
That's never happened.
No. We don't make mistakes. Okay, so we have an action, which is to go for coffee and start at the end. When are you guys going to do that?
Ooh.
Oh yeah, it doesn't get easier from here. When?
Immediately. As
I
soon
don't
as
know.
possible.
Let's look at the calendar. Today? Tomorrow? Tonight?
It'll be the next opening is today, 1:00.
There you go.
Wow, you guys do not let any dust collect on you. Okay. But that's the important part of coaching, is this could be a very nice conversation with a lot of laughs, and I seem very easy to get along with. But at the end of the day, if you don't take action on this, it's been a complete waste of time.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to sound like a you-know-what, but I am. Right? There's a difference between knowing and doing. You got to do. What's the old joke? It's okay to pray, son, but you got to move your feet.
Yeah.
Right? So are you committed then today by what time? 1:00?
1:00.
I think 1:30.
The world is watching.
1:30 today.
Okay, 1:30 today. So there you go. So by 1:30 today. That's when you'll have the meeting.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll send you a picture of our flow chart.
Oh my gosh, I'd love to see that. That would be great.
We'll
Okay.
do that. We'll text it to you tonight.
Yeah, text it. It's perfect. Just take a picture. So let's talk a little bit about the impact. When you get this done, this piece, and for the sake of it right now, are we calling this how custom kitchen cabinets are made in Powell River?
Sure,
Is
that's
that
a good
the flow chart?
Yeah.
Yeah, Nicole, you're okay with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think the impact would be on Elemental? Either money, time, headache?
It gets it out of my head. Do you know how much space that creates?
For other stuff?
Yeah, I'm really excited about that.
Yeah. Okay.
There's
So that's
so
an
many bits
impact.
in my brain that I think about on a daily basis, and I need to get some of them out. So
Well, and I also believe that with this chart and having the systems to follow, we'll be able to bring in and take in the customers faster, more efficiently.
and create a staff position.
Create a staff position, which once we have, this is the manual. This is the manual to pass off to the employee and say, this is your job, this is your responsibilities. Learn it, memorize it.
These
Do
are the
it.
steps.
These are the
Yeah.
steps.
And then when they come back to you, have a question, they can tell you what steps they're stuck at.
Yeah.
Just for the sake of it, we'll number the steps. Are you stuck between step 3 and 4 or 5 and 6? Right? And so it becomes much easier, not super, but it's easier for us to manage because we're all talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Oh, I have so much gratitude for you right now.
Oh, thank you. That's very nice. Very nice.
Whew.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Let me leave with one other thing, because in your original goals, you talked about, well, you're moving into a new shop, so you're going to need some people to help you produce all these new sales Nicole's going to be dragging through the door. So finding the right help, this is a free download, so you guys can grab it today as well. Just go to the website, cabinetmakerprofitsystem.com, and in the free downloads, there's hiring for attitude. But I also have in there the interview scripts, so what to say in the interview. And I break the interview into 2 parts so that time doesn't get wasted. So one of you has to jump on interview number 1, but you want to sift through the people that just aren't going to cut it before they get to person number 2. And either one of you can be person 1 or 2 in your size of business. If you had more employees, more staff, you would have somebody else do that call before they earn their right to talk to the next person in the company, because there's a lot of time wasters out there, and you'll just hear it in their attitude, right? Losers make a beautiful room dark by entering it, and winners make a room brighter by coming in. We want the winners, right?
The winners.
Yeah, people more like you guys. That's what we want. So that system, again, Nicole, that's a system, a process. It's a 2-step interview process for hiring for attitude.
Awesome. I wrote it down.
Okay, good. So we've been on the phone 44 minutes. Was that impactful for Elemental?
Oh,
Absolutely. Yes. Very
Perfect.
much so.
Excellent. Okay, guys. Well, thank you so much for being part of episode 100. It's crazy that we're at episode 1. I know, isn't it nuts?
That's awesome, Dom.
Oh, I'm so
Gotta
excited.
celebrate.
Yes. Feels so awesome that we could be here with you to celebrate that. That's
Yeah, thank you. I'm impressed. I'm impressed with everybody who came forward, because, you're supposed to do something special for episode 100, I guess. And I thought, well, what do I do? And everything that came to mind was self-serving, like, I'm just going to do this and that. And I thought, well, I don't want to do that. The show isn't really about that. So, well, why don't we do coaching so that somebody gets the benefit? And you guys then have helped, because somebody sitting in Wollongong, Australia is listening to this going, I live in a town just like that, and I could do those same things, right? So that's cool. So you guys have had an impact with me. So
awesome.
Thank you.
all right. Well, thanks, guys. Let's wrap it up here. And I look forward to seeing your text message sometime around 3:00 today.
Probably. Yeah. Yes.
Probably.
Yes.
Thank you. Probably. Okay. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you soon. Oh, I'm sorry, Nicole.
It depends on how long coffee is.
Well, it depends on what's in your coffee.
Right?
It depends on what's in it. Yeah. Okay, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Dom.
Thank you, Dom.
Yeah. Bye-bye. All right. That was Matt and Nicole's coaching session. How good was that? So many takeaways in there, and just clarity. I think maybe that's what they were looking for, is clarity. And of course, now we've got a line in the sand. They've got to get something done today by 1:30, I think our notes say. So I'll be interested to see when their text message shows up to me saying, hey, we got it done. Here's our operations flowchart. In this case, it's a sales operations flowchart that they're building. How custom kitchen cabinets are made in Powell River. Is that something you could put in place? Is that something your designers or salespeople or whoever you've got leading the sales effort on your side could put in place? And if so, what's holding you back? Why can't you get that done by today at 1:30? Why can't you go and pick up a blank piece of paper and sit down with a cup of coffee and go ahead and sketch it out, and then turn it into a nice 1-page PDF? You can share that with clients. You can put it on your website. It will build the trust that Nicole was saying she wanted to build in the clients that she's dealing with. And especially as you go upmarket clients, more affluent clients who are willing to pay a premium for your services and most likely will negotiate less. Those kinds of buyers buy in a certain way. They do expect trust. They do expect to follow a process. They don't want things to be random. And, think about the jobs that they probably have if they are an affluent buyer. They're some sort of professional, or they've reached some sort of level of success in whatever it is they do in their own personal and professional life. That means that they get systems, they get process, they get certainty, they understand clarity. And if you can help them bring that clarity through your process of building what you build, then they're going to obviously be more attracted to you. So there's some takeaways that we got from Matt and Nicole. Their big 5 things they could work on. I wonder if these resonate with any of you. Bottleneck for space, streamlining the intake, finding the right people. And of course, we talked about, hopefully they go download that freebie from the website on finding the right people. That's at cabinetmakerprofitsystem.com. You can download the same thing. They talked again about systems, streamlining it so it's not so convoluted. And Matt had some pricing questions related to costs and calculating markup. So those were their big questions. Do you have those questions? And if you do, what's the action you're going to take? Well, that wraps up Matt and Nicole, so I'll let it go from there. Thanks, folks. We'll talk to you soon.